Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFK Journey video. In this video, we're going to be talking about the must-have heroes every AFK Journey player should have on their account. And these are the ones which are going to give the most return basically on building them, whether it be allowing you to push AFK stages harder or ranking higher in Dream Realm, which are the two major game modes for AFK Journey. Okay, so we're going to lead it off with the A-level heroes. The first hero we're going to talk about is Bonnie. So Bonnie is a very strong hero in two major areas. One is for AFK stages because her damage output is kind of unmatched by any other hero due to her aging magic debuff, which deals damage over time. But she's also great in PvP. She's one of the top tier PvP heroes in regular arena and definitely also in Supreme Arena. On top of that, she has some occasional Dream Realm use if there are multiple enemy targets, for example in Plague Creeper. However, for the most part, she's not going to be really geared towards Dream Realm or boss content, but she does have occasional use there, mainly because of her Supreme Plus, which is going to cause magical damage to deal more damage to their target. So Bonnie is a must-have, there's no doubt about that. Next up, we're going to talk about Faramore. Faramore is another hero I consider a must-have for everyone's account, and the reason for that is he has a major use in Dream Realm due to his high damage output, especially with his Mythic Plus, which is going to allow bonus true damage to be triggered based on an attack multiplier of each of the allies on your team, and this allows Faramore to deal incredible damage in Dream Realm. But he does need his Mythic Plus before he's that useful. Before Mythic Plus, he's not going to be a great damage contributor, so do keep that in mind. But he's also one of those budget options. He doesn't necessarily need his Supreme Plus ability. He basically comes fully online at Mythic Plus, so that is an advantage. The other thing is Faramore is really good for AFK stages. He deals high damage. He's a Wilder faction hero, and Wilders are the king of AFK stages, so he allows you to complete that factional synergy. And very importantly, he has the HP recovery block. Basically, with his ultimate cast onto the enemy target, they will not be able to recover health, and there are some annoying AFK stages where the enemies have HP recovery, which he is going to lock down and deny. In PvP, Faramore is not as strong. He has survival issues. However, if he can get off his ultimate, it is a major burst even in PvP. So overall, for these reasons, I think you cannot pass on Faramore. He is one of the best heroes in the game, and he was also released this season. Okay, moving on, I am going to say Almas is a must-have hero. So Almas, his major factor is his Mythic Plus ability, because this is going to prolong the duration of any crowd control when enemies are knocked down, knocked up, or affected by a displacement effect. And so he has great synergy with Iron, who has a displacement effect with Iron's ultimate, and this is going to prolong the duration of that crowd control. So Almas is a great ally along with crowd control oriented comms, and that is why he is a staple for AFK stages where you need to lock down the enemies for a long time and just deal damage over time. And definitely also for like Arcane Labyrinth. I know maybe people are not a big fan of that mode, but Almas makes your job a lot easier. Just one thing I want to mention is Almas is not great obviously in Dream Realm. He has no use. In PvP, he is great because he can combo with Iron again. There's great synergy, and he has a lot of survival in his kit, because when Almas takes heavy damage below 30% health, he is going to become untargetable and jump to the backline and begin recovering health. So he has a lot of survivability. That's why he was so good this season in Supreme Arena, where you wanted to have high survival heroes off the Wilder faction talents. One thing I just need to mention is that because we have the twins now and allow you to cycle your crowd control like Iron ultimate, for example, along with Tossie ultimate as well, then the thing is Almas sometimes is being replaced from some high deficit AFK stage teams because you don't need his extra prolonging of the crowd control, because you have so much cycling with the twins, Iron, and other forms of crowd control. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It does seem like Almas is now being replaced somewhat. However, he still has a great role in AFK stage teams, and definitely for a beginner player, he is going to be, once you get him to Mythic Plus, him along with Iron is a great combo, but you will need him at Mythic Plus for that. Okay, moving on, we're going to now talk about Coco. So Coco is a hero which you cannot pass on because of how useful she is in the early game for Dream Realm. She provides damage reduction for your entire team. That is going to allow you to survive longer and to get off more damage and boss content. For early game and even pre-endless Dream Realm bosses, even in late game, you will need sometimes Coco to keep your team alive, and there's no other hero which does her job as well as she does. And then when you can get Coco up to Mythic Plus, she will come with the shield after the damage reduction wears off from her ultimate, and that is going to further enhance your survivability of the team. So that is why Coco is a must-have and definitely needs to be built to Mythic Plus. There's no question about it for every single player. Next up, we have Odie. Odie is still, he's an OG. He was here at the beginning, global launch. He was one of the best damage dealers then, further before Dream Realm, even used in AFK stages. But now, even now, he is still a great damage dealer for Dream Realm. For pre-endless bosses specifically, he's great. And even in endless bosses, when you have a boss like Thalassa, where you need ranged damage dealers, Odie was great, top tier, up until Shamira came out. So Shamira definitely is going to make it even more difficult for Odie to take part in Dream Realm content. So I could even imagine, honestly, maybe Odie is going to be crept a bit out of the meta, but as it stands right now, Odie is still a must-have hero. And also early game, like for early AFK stages and starter story, you use Odie quite a lot, and for early Dream Realm content, you use Odie. So that is the thing. However, that is actually a really interesting point. Now that Shamira is out, I don't know, will Shamira be even better than Odie in pre-endless? Because that's kind of still where Odie shines, and you want to get Odie to Mythic Plus. That is important because then he has his execution. That is important. Okay, moving on, we have the final A-level hero, which I consider must-have, which is Sinbad. Sinbad really proved himself this season, being a major damage dealer contributor for the Elusia boss, and even multiple Dream Realm bosses. When we got to Endless, though, however, he has been phased out. He's not used in many of the top teams anymore. However, he was used in Titan Reavers, in any other Ravage Realm. He is the top contributor of damage in Ravage Realm for the Aurora squad. So that all proves that Sinbad is a very important boss killer hero, and he is a must build for everyone. And you want to get him to Mythic Plus, because that is when he has further, like, basically debuff onto the boss to increase the damage that you can deal to the boss. Basically defense shred onto the boss. So Sinbad is still a must-have hero. Everyone should be building him up, and there is no question about that for right now. Okay, now we're going to move on to the S levels, and we're going to lead it off with Shamira, who has really shaken up the game because she has just recently been released. She's still on Raid Up banner, and she has surpassed probably everyone's expectations of how good she was going to be. So where does Shamira excel is mainly Dream Realm content, because she has massive damage coming from her ultimate, which summons multiple, like many ghosts at her target. And when she has her Mythic Plus, especially plus 10 exclusive equipment, then she will deal additional damage, which with each of the ghost attacks that will deal 3% of the target's max health, capped at a portion of her attack. So this is why Shamira is so strong. She has so much true damage and high damage multipliers, and her ultimate just shreds through practically all bosses. And even for an endgame account with all of the heroes maxed, everything built, Shamira is still earning herself a place in multiple Dream Realm endless boss teams, and that just proves how great of a damage dealer she is. And for early game, that means no question she is going to be the greatest damage dealer you can bring to Dream Realm. And it's kind of crazy because even at one copy, even before she is ascended to her Mythic Plus, she still has insane damage coming out from her ultimate, because of the insane multiplier that it has. So, but of course you want to get her to Mythic Plus, plus 10 exclusive equipment as quickly as you can. But even in the early game, her ultimate alone is going to shred through Dream Realm boss content, making her kind of like the best early game damage dealer. Yeah, apart from that, like, I think early game she can have some AFK stage use, but late game she's not used in AFK stages. They're better heroes who offer some debuffs or damage. And that is another thing I forgot to mention about Bonnie. Bonnie has a debuff which also improves the survival of your team in AFK stages. That's another reason. Like, Shamira has raw damage, Bonnie has high damage and also a debuff, so that also provides some protection for your team as compared to Shamira. But Shamira is definitely a great top tier hero, and for PvP as well, she is very strong. On offense specifically, if you find a defense which doesn't have the ability to nuke Shamira at the beginning of the fight, and Shamira is able to get off her ultimate, it will kill practically all of the enemy team, unless they have some survival mechanic like Tassi. So Shamira this is why she is top tier, and a major priority for everyone. And like on Raid Up banner right now, everyone should be getting her as high as they can, like up to Supreme Plus. You don't need to take her beyond that. Okay, so we have Ludovic. Ludovic is the next hero, which is a must-have for everyone's account, and the reason for that is because of his skill 1, Life Weaver's Bloom. This deals HP per second damage, which is the most potent, basically strongest version of damage for endless Dream Realm bosses, because it is not affected at all by damage reduction stat of the boss. So this is why Ludovic is in the part of all of the many of the endless Dream Realm boss teams, the top teams which are being run. However, he needs his Mythic Plus charms to actually come online, because the Mythic Plus charms give him skill power, and that is going to boost his multipliers to make this at an actual, like a decent damage output level. Before his Mythic Plus charms, his damage is not high enough to compete in the top teams, and so the top teams are usually not going to be involving Ludovic until he has Mythic Plus charms. But because once Mythic Plus charms are out, Ludovic always becomes the king of multiple Dream Realm bosses. That is why he's really important for everyone to build on his account, but is a lower priority in my opinion compared to someone like Shamira, who has uses for pre-endless, pre-Mythic Plus charms, I'm sure, and then also Mythic Plus charms. Also, Ludovic is good in PvP. He is the best burst healer in the game with his her Life Weaver Bloom, which is going to like summon or spawn right beneath him at the beginning of the match, healing allies adjacent and adjacent tiles to himself. And that burst healing is enough to counter enemy Iron nuke combos, or if they have any form of nuking. Yeah, it is going to be difficult for them to burst through Ludovic's healing. So that is why he's just really strong for that as well. Okay, moving on to the next one. Next one, we have Tassi. So the reason Tassi is so good is for two major game modes. Number one is for AFK stages. In AFK stages, she is one of the most popularly used heroes over the entire season in the recommended formations, and the reason for that is she contributes high damage, but along with her damage, she comes with high crowd control. 3.5 second hypnotization AoE onto all enemies with her ultimate, and it actually goes up to a 5.5 second hypnotization with her Mythic Plus charms, which is crazy for an actual damage dealer to also be contributing so much crowd control. On top of this, she has more crowd control from Dream Dance, which has stuns each time she casts this, and is on a fairly low cooldown, so she can keep cycling this. And then she has invincibility built into her kit from Flooding Your Dream. And this is not that important in AFK stages, but it does pretty much guarantee her survival for that. But now let's talk about PvP, because PvP is another major game mode where Tassi is the queen, basically top tier. The reason for that is because of her survival in her kit from Fluttering Dream. She has 2 free invincibility procs from the beginning, and she can get additional invincibility procs with her Supreme Plus ability if she gets an assist or defeat onto an enemy. So she has a solo potential. She's almost guaranteed to have enough survival to get off at least one ultimate, and that one ultimate can massively change the tides of a fight. It has massive damage, hypnotizes all the enemies, crowd controlling them, and so she has great synergy with Bonnie in PvP, for example, for regular arena or Supreme Arena. She is a hero which allows you to rank so much higher than if you didn't have her. So that is also a major benefit of having her, is going to give you more rewards for PvP and also more rewards from pushing AFK stages and keeping your season resonance level up. So that's why Tassi is a must-have hero, very, very important. We're going to move on. Now, I want to talk about Lily May. So, Lily May, I am not considering a must-have hero anymore, and the reason for that is her use is mainly for PvP and Ravage Realm. Ravage Realm is not going to be the #1 priority on an account, because you have to first solidify your other key heroes, which are used on a daily basis in Dream Realm and, for example, AFK stages. So that's the thing with Lily May. Lily May is still a great hero, don't get me wrong. However, for early Dream Realm, Shamira is probably going to outshine Lily May. That's almost already decided. In PvP, Lily May is still a powerhouse. She is a queen. However, that is not enough of a reason for you to be building a hero, because PvP alone is not enough. Like, you want to have a hero that is functional in multiple game modes and also really good in PvP. For example, Tassi. For example, Bonnie. Okay, now we have Iron. So Iron is one of the most important heroes in the game because of the crowd control he has on his ultimate. It is going to be an immobilization. It lasts for 3 seconds. However, when you get his Mythic Plus +10 exclusive equipment, it is a 6-second immobilization duration. And with Almus's Mythic Plus is going to prolong the duration of this crowd control by rooting the enemies for 2 seconds. After displacing them from the Iron ultimate, and also Iron along with Tassi, they both provide a lot of crowd control. Iron has decent damage in his kit as well, and yeah, he just wants to cycle his ultimate as much as possible. And the twins, Elijah and Lila, they take Iron onto another level, and they also take Tassi onto another level because they give energy periodically throughout the fight. There's energy refund when you cast your first ultimate, or all of the ultimates actually throughout the fight, and it allows you to cycle even faster. So Iron, Tassi, along with the twins, they're able to like permanently lock down the opponent. And this was one reason why I was saying Almus is a little bit being replaced, because even though Almus is great for prolonged crowd control, now that we have so much cycling capabilities and massive crowd control on ultimates, you kind of don't need him. However, Still, that being said, Almas is still a top tier hero and still a must-have because, especially also before you get Mythic Plus Charms of Tassi, her crowd control isn't quite enough. And really just having that Almas Iron combo early game to mid game is really important for AFK stages. And even now, it's not like Almas is not used. Almas is still used even at a pay-to-win high deficit level. It's just that, like, when you have your Mythic Plus Charms, Iron Tassi twins is usually enough crowd control that you don't need Almas on top of that, and it's better to have like a damage dealer. However, Almas is still a great hero. And yeah, for the early game, you need him built up to help you in the early game AFK stages. Okay, so that is basically Iron in a nutshell. In PvP also, he's really good, along with, again, Almas for prolonging the crowd control and locking down the enemies, grouping them up, and setting up the rest of your team to getting kills. So Iron is a must-have hero, there's no question about that. So Mikola is a must-have hero because she has a high attack buff as a support for Dream Realm specifically. Mikola is mainly only useful for Dream Realm, but in that game mode, she is one of the top tier. She has a 20% attack buff for all of your allies if you're controlling the Honor Arena, which you're guaranteed to control in most boss content for the whole fight. Along with that, she has haste buff from her ultimate, and when you give her a Supreme Plus upgrade, the ultimate is going to be permanent. After casting it for the first time, it will keep channeling throughout the entire duration of the fight, providing a high haste buff to your allies. So for these reasons, this is why Mikola is one of the best buffing supports in the game to increase your damage output in Dream Realm. And so Mikola is a must-have, a staple hero. Now that there are more heroes being added, for example, we have multiple top-tier supports, Mikola, Smokey, even the twins. Mikola is fighting a little bit for her place. Specifically, the twins have kind of replaced Mikola from some lineups. But that being said, Mikola is still the top tier in some boss content, and definitely early to mid-game, you're going to be using Mikola in almost all of your teams. So that's why Mikola is a must-have hero. Next up, we have Shakir. Shakir is a must-have hero, especially for endless Dream Realm bosses. Because of his Lupine's Aura, his ultimate ability, it provides an attack buff to allies. If you take a look here, his Wolf's Will effect is going to be a 7.5% attack buff to all allies within range of his Lupine's Aura. And this 7.5% is not just flat 7.5. 7.5 scaling depending on the number of allies within your Lupine's Aura. If you have 5-6 allies in your Lupine's Aura, it's 7.5 times 6. And that is a massive attack buff. And especially when he gets his Mystic Charms, the Mythic Plus Charms, they give him more skill power. That increases the attack buff per ally within the Lupine's Aura, and that it takes him onto another level in terms of buffing potential, making him, for example, in two bosses like Crystal Beetle, Orson. There is nothing that can compete with the Shakir buffing comp, because Shakir is allowed to get into that perfect position, buffing up all allies on the team. And even for other boss content, even if he isn't in the #1 team, he's usually in the best, more budget-friendly team, or third best team, fourth best team, and things like that. So Shakir is top tier. He's a must-have hero, but you need to get him to Mythic Plus, and you need to get him to his +10 exclusive equipment before he gets any value for Dream Realm. Because before this, he's not useful because he doesn't provide any attack buff from his Lupine's Aura. It only provides attack buff after he gets his Mythic Plus +10 exclusive equipment. So he's a heavy, you need to invest a lot into him, and you don't really see any benefit of having him up until he's at this point. So that's kind of the issue with Shakir, but still, he's a staple, and everyone needs to have Shakir on their account. You cannot pass on Shakir. Next up, we have Smokey. Smokey is the top tier main factional support currently in the game, because not only does he provide a high attack buff, just like Mikola 20 attack buff, he also provides haste, like Mikola 30 haste to all allies, and more importantly, he provides high damage output for Dream Realm Endless boss content. He deals HP per second damage, as you can see here, up to 15% of the maximum health of enemies, but it would be capped at 200% of Smokey's own attack, and that is going to be HP per second damage, which is not reducible by damage reduction effects, and this allows Smokey to always have a high damage contribution in Endless Dream Realm content. Pre-Endless, though, his damage is not as high, but for Endless content, not only is he a great buffer and supporter, he also has high damage of his own. Like, he's the best of both worlds, and that's why Smokey is one of the most used Dream Realm boss heroes in the game of the main faction. Okay, finally, we have the final S-level hero, which is a must-have, which is Sonya. Sonya is really important because of her Crimson Covenant. This provides an attack buff, also a defense buff, but you don't really care about that because her main use is for Dream Realm. And in Dream Realm, you just want to ramp up the damage of your team as much as possible. So Crimson Covenant is going to start off with an initial attack boost, as you can see here, of 16%. And over time, as this fight goes, the attack boost is going to scale. Every 6 seconds is going to increase, as you can see here, by 3% attack. And if you have skill power from, for example, Mythic Plus charms or Arcane charms, this is going to be an even higher attack buff that she provides. And it can scale up to eventually around 40% attack buff, which is huge. Buffing, and you can buff up 2 allies with this and your 2 key damages for Dream Realm. And not only that, but on top of this, Sonya has actually decent damage output of her own. And these Crimson Covenant buffs apply to herself as well. So she's getting the buff value, she's buffing up 2 other allies along with herself, and then she has high damage output of her own as well. Finally, she has some damage reduction. If you can't have her Mythic plus 10 exclusive equipment, she has damage reduction after she casts her ultimate for Crimson Covenant members. However, this is not as important generally in Dream Realm, like generally you have other heroes for survivability like Coco, like we mentioned, or the boss just doesn't need that much survival and then you just want raw attack. So that's why you don't need to have plus 10 exclusive equipment Mythic plus. However, it's just something to mention. Sonya is a great buffer, one of the best buffers, and for pre-endless boss content, Sonya is used in almost all of the top Dream Realm boss comps. That is how good she is. But once you get to endless bosses, then she does fall off and other heroes take her place. Okay, those are all the main factional heroes. Now we're going to move to the Celestial Hypogeans. So for the Celestial Hypogeans, we're going to start with 2 heroes which every single player should have built on their account. There's no exception about that. So number 1 are the twins. The twins are the most important game-changing Celestial Hypogean hero in the game right now. This doesn't mean that they should be your first hero that you go all into Supreme Plus, because they can work at 1 copy. This is the major advantage of the twins. They do well with 1 copy because the benefit the twins provide is a massive haste buff when they cast their ultimate, and the ultimate is available even at 1 copy, epic of the twins. And then Stellar Bond is the other major value they provide, which is going to be an attack buff to allies linked on the Stellar Bond, as well as energy periodically and health being given to those heroes. Apart from that, the other skills are not as important. The legendary plus of the twins is a little bit important. It will be further haste boosting for your allies as well as themselves, and so ideally you would have this legendary plus upgrade. The mythic plus is important in a way because it provides energy refund. This is going to allow you to cycle your ultimates more. For Dream Realm specifically, however, it's not as important to be cycling ultimates. A lot of the damage comes from heroes on their skills or their normal attacks as compared to their actual ultimate casting. However, this still is going to have a meaningful boost. It also has some stat boosts like Vitality here. And then their Supreme Plus is a major upgrade. This is actually the reason why the twins are important to upgrade all the way, because the Supreme Plus is going to further enhance the buffs they provide by the Stellar Bond by an additional 15% of the highest corresponding stats amongst all linked allies on the Stellar Bond, and then everyone along that Stellar Bond is going to receive basically those bonus stats on top of their own stats. So that is another 15% attack boost, basically, along with defenses boost. So that's why the twins are so strong. For Dream Realm, they are the best support. They use in pre-endless and endless Dream Realm bosses. The top team in every single boss has always used the twins. This is unheard of. This has never been the case in AFK Journey, especially now that we're like over 1 year into the game and there's so many heroes to choose from, that the twins are in every team and the top option for every single boss team. That's ridiculous. You cannot even, it's kind of unbelievable how crazy that is. So they are the meta defining support hero for Dream Realm content. Along with that, for AFK stages, they're using every single top recommended team formation of AFK stages, which is just ridiculous. They're so good everywhere. For all PvE content, the twins are number 1. No one can even get on their level. Like, everyone is like tiers below them. Maybe even multiple tiers below them. That's how good they are. For AFK stages, they cycle ultimates for crowd control. They have damage. They boost the damage of your team by giving the haste buff, because that allows you to have a lower cooldown on your skills and higher attack speed. So this is why the twins is just the most game-changing hero in AFK Journey history. But along with this, Freestro is another must-have hero everyone needs to build on their account. And honestly, in the early game, like we said, twins can work at 1 copy. Then the rest of your copies and your resources should be allocated to getting Freestro built up, at least to Mythic Plus. The reason Freestro is still a top-tier hero is only because of his Vicious Sting ability. This is dealing HP per second damage, and this is still making him one of the top damage dealers for endless Dream Realm bosses. Now, the problem is for pre-endless bosses, Freestro is not used at all for Dream Realm. But for AFK stages, Freestro is still used. Freestro has some use in AFK stages. Not a top tier option, not as used as a Twins, definitely not. But he has some use. And for Endless Dream Realm, you basically cannot get away with not having Freestro in your lineup. You need to build him up. Because a lot of comps synergize around him. And the other advantage of him is he summons an illusion of himself, a copy of himself. So you have two bodies on the field that enhances the Lupine's aura buff of Shakir that we were talking about. And also, it's just like two heroes for the price of one, both dealing the same amount of damage. So it's basically doubling the damage of a normal hero. Now, that's not exactly true because the multiplier of this HP per second damage is not insanely high. So it's not like completely broken. And the only thing to keep in mind now, and I guess we're going to talk about that now because Celestial Hypogeans are a major investment. And so it takes you months for you to build up a hero. The only thing that could make faster less important is if becomes a better HP per second damage hero that is released. Now, as of right now, Freestro has stood the test of time. He has been a top damage dealer since his launch up until now, and no one is taking his throne. But it is only a matter of time before a better HP per second damage dealer comes out, so there is that little bit of worry about power creep. However, honestly, he's still, as of right now, as the current game stands, he is a must build. Everyone needs him on their account. Okay, next up we have two Celestial Hypogeans I'm going to end off the video with. These are not necessarily must-haves, but they are almost to that tier, and I needed to include them because they're just so important. So we have Rainier. So when he has his Mythic Plus upgrade, that takes 8 copies in total. So that's all you need. You do not need to take him beyond that. So that's kind of a luxury because, for example, other Celestial Hypogean heroes, you have to take them all the way 14 copies up to Supreme Plus to maximize their potential. Rainier's potential is maximized at Mythic Plus, which is 8 copies. But the problem is before getting to his Mythic Plus, he's useless. He's not useful for anything. Like, the Mythic Plus is his game-changing ability. That's the only skill you basically care about for Dream Realm. And it is, but it's still the best debuff in the game for boss content. Look at it. When casting Dynamic Balance, increasing their damage taken by 25%. Whoever he casts Dynamic Balance on, which will be bosses in Dream Realm, they're going to be taking 25% boosted bonus damage. And this damage, the thing with this is it applies to true damage, physical damage, magical damage, but it does not apply to HP per second damage. And so this is the problem. When you get to endless bosses where HP per second damage dealers shine, then Rainier's debuff is not useful anymore because it's not benefiting those heroes. And so if it's an HP per second damage comp, Rainier's not going to be good. However, Rainier is still good for some specific bosses where you need that position swap, getting that hero up into the front line, because that's what he does. But it is only for true damage, physical damage, and magical damage that his debuff applies and boosts and amplifies in damage, and that is kind of his drawback. However, when you're talking about pre-endless Dream Realm bosses, Rainier's used in almost every top team, and he is basically so dominant that, like, you can't avoid him. You can't overlook him. And in endless bosses, he's still used in the top team formation for a couple of teams so that he earns his place, right? And for PvP, Rainier has some uses, but I don't really consider that a major reason to be building him up. Okay, finally we have Harak. Harak is the final Celestial Hypogean we have to wrap up the video with. Harak is, again, he is not necessarily must-have for everyone, and like if you're a newer player and you're limited on resources, you do not have to think about building him. But eventually, if you want to round out your account in the current game state, he is a final hero you want to have on your account because he has multiple major uses. Number one, for Dream Realm, he has HP per second damage, and he also feeds off of his own allies to increase his attack to insane amounts, like increasing his attack by up to 260% of his base attack. That is insane. He becomes a hero that has one of the highest base attack, or the highest base attack that any hero can possibly ever attain. And that is what Harak can do. And then he has high HP per second damage and high attack multipliers on all of his abilities. So that is why he's a good damage dealer. However, the problem is you need to have a team dedicated to him because he does devour his own allies. But all that being said, in the top endless Dream Realm boss teams, Harak is a part of multiple top boss teams. And especially before you get Mythic Plus charms, before like Ludovic and Shakir come online, that is when Harak has his best time to shine. And like 5 to 6 of the 8 different Dream On bosses, he's in the top team. And so if you don't have Harak, you're going to be missing out on on that period of Dream Realm in the Endless and Beyond period, and also for things like Ravage Realm, you cannot compete for the top ranks unless you have Harak built. So that is why Harak kind of becomes a staple if you were competing for the top ranks in different PvE content. But that being said, there are good no Harak teams as well that maybe cannot get as high of a score in certain bosses, but in other bosses, Harak is not even used. And because of the fact that Harak eats his own allies, honestly speaking, is more likely that if a better HP per second damage deal comes out, that probably Harak is going to be power crept before Fresto gets power crept. So that's the other worrying thing. Like, Harak and Fresto, they both have a potential to be power crept when a better HP per second damage deal comes out. And Harak, because he eats his own allies, he comes at that cost, is kind of like even more likely that he is eventually going to be power crept. But as of right now, he's against the test of time, still being a very meta hero for boss content. And for AFK stages specifically, there are some stages that if you do not have Harak built, it will be very difficult for you to pass those stages. You need to heavily overlevel as compared to a player who has Harak. Harak is really dominant for high deficit AFK stage pushing, and is because of its Flesh Feast ability, which will insta-kill. It will insta-kill an enemy who has the lowest health ratio, or it can also insta-kill your own ally, but like in AFK stages, you keep your health on your team, like your ally's high HP ratio, so the enemies will have the lower HP ratio, and he will, in one gulp, devour that hero, no matter how tanky it is, no matter if it's unkillable. Literally, if it's not killable by any other hero, Harak can still one by one kill every hero just with cycling his Flesh Feast. So that is kind of a very unique thing that he has going for him, making him kind of like needed if you want to push to your maximum of AFK stages, especially at the higher levels later in the season. But anyway, guys, but overall, Harak is the hero which can be skipped potentially because he is not as meta defining as the other Celestial Hypogeans we talked about, like Fresto, Twins. Those are the most important. Rainier Mythic Plus is really nice after that, and then Harak finally, if you're able to. But then with all of that covered, I'm really happy with everything we talked about in this video. I think we hit all the bases, talked about all the most important heroes must-haves for new players, and also if you're a mid-game player, make sure you have all of these heroes built up. And then basically you're set for the major game modes, competing in Dream Realm, pushing hard in AFK stages to boost your levels throughout the season. And this is important because we're going to be entering into a new season very shortly. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought about all of this in the comment section down below. Do you have any other heroes which you consider a must-have? Feel free to share in the comment section. I look forward to reading those. Also, feel free to join my AFK Journey Discord server. There's a link to that in the description of this video. And also, finally, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're not already subscribed. But thank you guys for the support. I'll hopefully see you in the next video. And until then, everyone, peace out for now.